Welcome back to the morning meeting. Thank you for joining Sean, Tim, and me on this extremely confusing and busy day. Whether you're watching on YouTube or here on two-way direct, grateful for you for joining. If you're going to want to ask a question, if you know you already do, please raise your hand now, just so we can try to queue everybody up and get a good sense of how big the universe is. A question or comment, please raise your electronic hand now. We're going to talk, for starters, about the Republicans, about the convention tonight with Donald Trump's speech, some of the other things that are going on. We want to kind of get that out of the way, as huge a story as Trump's speech is and some of the other things going on here. We really want to devote a lot of what we talk about today to what's going on with the Democrats, which is just a massive story. So we'll talk both about what's going on with Joe Biden, as well as some of the issues connected to this notion of, if it's not Joe Biden, if he does make a decision to not run, what happens after that with either Kamala Harris or what's behind door number 3. And we'll talk about some of those issues. The president, as you all know, is back in Delaware. He's got COVID and he's secluded, trying to get a handle on whether he's got incoming calls or outgoing calls, amid reports, as probably most of you know, that he is open now, reports say, to looking at the prospect of Kamala Harris and what else, and figure out also where Nancy Pelosi is. She's not in the daybook, but as far as I know, she's still in San Francisco, but we're working on that. The vice president's going to North Carolina, a state she spent a lot of time in doing political events. It'll be interesting to see if she does become the nominee, what if her electoral college map and its emphasis looks any different than the president's. And I think North Carolina would probably be a greater emphasis for her because the demographics there maybe than it would be for a Biden-Harris ticket, the way it is now. And her events are around 2 Eastern time. And Donald Trump will give his speech tonight. Don't know the exact start time. Don't know too many of the other speakers tonight. The theme, Make America Great Once Again. UFC Dana White is supposedly introducing the president, or at least near him. Melania Trump and Ivanka are expected to be here, not expected to speak, or at least not speak at length. Mike Pompeo is expected to speak, according to some reports, but we'll see who ends up being as part of that program. And also, I'm super curious to see how long President Trump's speech is. So again, if you want to get into the conversation, please raise your electronic hand and we'll get to as many of you as we can. I want to start with Sean on the question of the President Trump's speech tonight. Seems like they're advertising it as kinder, gentler Donald Trump, less about January 6th and stolen election, more about how he feels about America and his own situation, and that unity after the assassination attempt. So, Sean, what do you think?
So I think after listening to some of the media reports, I remember you got to grade on a curve when you talk to Trump. They're like, it's going to be softer and kinder, but it's still Donald Trump. So he's not going to do the whole touchy-feely empathy thing, but I think he will weave in how this event last Saturday night shaped his life. And if you haven't watched the video, when you stop for a moment, regardless of your thoughts about Trump, and realize how close those bullets did come to his head, I think that some of the things that we're seeing on TV are real, the impact that something like that has on your life. And I think he will weave that in. I think he will talk about Biden and the border and stuff, but I don't think you're going to see the retribution, the January 6th, the stolen election. That doesn't make sense tonight. He will talk about the border. He will talk about aggrieved men and women. I think it'll be the amped up version of what kind of JD talked about last night. But I have a feeling tonight you're going to hear a great speech. I think Melania will come out at the very end when they bring the family out. I think Ivanka will be there. I mean, it'll be the great reveal, maybe at the beginning. But look, this gets back to the whole showman thing. It's not going to be just him walking out on stage. There's going to be more. He gets that, and I think you're going to see it in spades tonight.
I think I think it will be interesting. The unity question is kind of hanging over this in convention, and whether or not it will crack under the weight of a Trump agenda. I mean, there's only so many ways I think you can talk about things. And we saw in the pre-planned video, for example, Trump still peddling some election denialism stuff. So they teased it yesterday. Maybe it doesn't make its way into his written speech today, but that agenda is still there. That rhetoric is still there. And I think it will be interesting, to Sean's point, like, this is the first time we're going to see him in an extended way, in a non-print way, give a speech after the attempt on his life. So I know they're teasing it as something that's going to be more unifying, but like, is he going to be able to avoid election denialism? We've got people waving placards that say mass deportations now. Is he going to talk about the witch hunt against him? I mean, that's like rhetoric you just can't avoid with him, but maybe it's possible.
But I think it's how you talk about it that matters, right? I think that JD touched on the coming after him standpoint. Don talked about it. There's one thing to say they're coming after me. They've been blah blah blah. Then delving into it the way you would at a rally, and so the last thing I would just say is look, I said President Biden gave a great State of the Union speech. I think reading a speech from a teleprompter is not. I mean, it's there's still a bit of talent that goes into that, but giving a speech to me is not the be all and end all. This is one night. I don't think it's going to move the needle one way. I think he'll do great. I think the programming's been fantastic. That being said, I don't think people go, God, I heard this speech at the convention, I'm voting for Trump. This is an iterative process. We've got 4 months to go. And I think whether, Biden or Trump gives a great speech one night is not the be all and end all. So I think this has been a great convention. They've done a great job. It's just we're in the first inning of a 9-inning game.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been wrong about a lot of stuff in my career. I've never been wrong this many times on the same issue about whether Joe Biden is going to be the nominee or not. Yesterday, I was pretty sure he was going to be, quite sure. But we saw the series of events related to the AP poll and a clear understanding of what we thought was happening, but seeing it spelled out of Nancy Pelosi's basically saying, I will step this up.
Mark, to your point, look, I've been defiant that for logistical reasons, for Biden reasons, for every other reason in the world, he's not going to drop out, right? Just who he is as a person, the logistics.
Yeah, that's how I felt.
Yesterday, I changed for the first time. I went, "Oh my God, I've been wrong." Like look, call me what you will. He said 2 days ago, unless a medical issue came up, I get it, it's COVID, but it's an off ramp. He gets to go to Delaware. He gets to reconvene privately under the guise of COVID to discuss and can talk to Jill and Hunter, whatever. This is the off ramp that they've been looking for. I've never thought that before.
Yeah, here's the problem. Okay, and I'm not saying he's not going to get out, because I think he will. The minute he decides, okay, yeah, I see my way to getting out. Does he endorse Harris? Does he?
They're figuring out now.
Well, I don't think he's there yet. I think he's still dealing with decision one. Does he step down as president? What reason does he give? There's tons of some serious issues. And if he's not all in on Harris, and again, I think the key question is Pelosi all in on Harris? Because a lot of Pelosi's donors and a lot of her members and a lot of the data suggests trading Harris in for Biden may not help them, hold the White House, and it may hurt some of their candidates, where Biden can be stronger. So I think there's a lot that has to happen. Tim, let me just finish the thought. There's a lot that has to happen once Biden, and when and if Biden says, yes, I'm stepping down as a nominee. And he's such a bad decision maker. And even if they want to do the roll call later and later, he may not finish his decision.
Well, that was them pushing that roll call vote to the right yesterday was a signal they were giving him some extra time.
Yeah, and giving themselves some extra time.
Well, but I'll let Tim answer this. I think that everyone overlooks the logistics of a convention. And I get that it's like, this isn't ordering lunch where it's like, what do you guys want? Okay, well, we'll go with Harris or Gavin or whatever. Like, conventions are so scripted. And the idea that you're going back to 72, 68 to figure this out, not to mention the dynamics of the culture that we live in now, where everyone's going to feel aggrieved that they got screwed and you pushed aside a black woman. I'm telling you, this is, I think your point about the decision-making, Mark, and then I'll stop, is that it's not one decision. It's a big decision.
And if he goes, how many of them does he want to make? How many does he want to say, I'm in charge of the convention still? And if it's not Harris, and I'll just say really quickly, there's a one emerging thing is he basically says, I'm for Harris, but I think it should be an open process. She should go earn it at the convention. Not impossible. Tim, go ahead.
Not impossible, but I think and never have I ever thought it wise to question Nancy Pelosi, but if she is able to, and what she wants is to push the president aside, she is then going to take the second step of also potentially pushing aside the vice president, or maybe, to your point, Mark, Biden holds on to that as a lever and says, yeah, she should go earn it at the convention. But I think to your point, it's so many steps in this process. And I'm of two minds, right? We're 109 days away from the election, which is time for us to figure this out internally. But it is not enough time, in my opinion, to Sean's point about logistics, to also open this up and then look at the proposals of how we would run this process. They are so fundamentally unserious. Early memos circulating that's we're going to get Taylor Swift and Michelle Obama to mediate candidate forms. We don't have time for that. You know what I mean?
We're her off the Eras tour. She's got there's no way she'll make it.
Yeah. Look. I think that again, Biden might have to do it. But here's two things that are going on that haven't gotten. They're somewhat subterranean, not entirely, but really key. One is the donors really are just like, that's it. We're not going to give money. And that is, I think, what's going to force his hand, because the polling data, he can always say, no matter how far he's behind, he can always say Dukakis lost a 17-point lead. But the absence of money, I think, is the thing that they're using to force his hand. The staff is in revolt, and someday someone will write a great book about what happened with Ricchetti and Donlin and Anita Dunn and the other senior staff. It is really grim in there, and it's really this team that hasn't leaked and has basically had each other's backs and has been pretty collegial. It is not where that is right now, and that also could force his hand.
One point on that: whoever the new nominee would be, we all know. I mean, again, this gets back to my point: the idea of putting together a presidential team that could put a ground operation, whatever, doesn't just happen. And
yeah,
you're going to want to do is take over this crew. So yeah. I'm just telling you, like
And Harris is the closest. Harris is the closest to have run a full presidential campaign.
Right. But just to be clear, part of why Biden's justification to not get out is he agrees with you, Sean. He doesn't think somebody could stand this up. And to the Harris point, I don't know how well either of you guys know her. I could see her, even though I don't think this is in the end what she'd do. I could see her looking at this and saying, I can't run with these Biden people. They don't trust me. They're the ones who go around trashing me, saying I can't get elected president. And if I did, I'd be a horrible president.
But I mean,
she may not have any much of a team either. And I hold open the possibility that even if Biden and Pelosi don't try to eliminate her, and I don't know if they tried, if they succeed, I hope the possibility that she might take a pass.
So here's the caveat on that. If I were her, I would say, Mr. President, if I do this, we're walking. I mean, here's the deal. What if you step down, I become the incumbent, and then I run?
And then, I become the president for a few months, and I don't run because I say I got to run the country. And then the question is, do the Obama, Clinton, Pelosi, Schumer settle on a ticket? And at that point, it could be Gavin. And I don't know. People have mixed feelings about whether Gavin could beat Trump, but maybe he could. Maybe he could. All right, let's go. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Let's go to your question. Start with Zoom user. Unmute Zoom user with the bridge behind you.
Good morning, Mark. Good morning, you all. I don't think anybody can look at themselves and blame them for being unable to read the tea leaves. I think that this situation is so complicated that you can't really do it. It's just too complicated. But I also
the only thing I say about that is I have colleagues and friends who have been definitive he's going to get out. So if he does end up getting out, they somehow read it better than I did. Go ahead.
Well, that may be, but that's one can never tell on those things. But I don't think there's any way that Kamala Harris can run and be elected to the to president of the United States. I don't believe that. I think that she is incapable of doing it. I think after looking at JD last night, I can't even imagine her trying to stand up in a debate.
Are you a Democrat or Republican, or a Trump voter or Biden voter? Republican.
I'm a Trump voter.
Voter. All right. So look, that's the consensus view in the Republican Party, not to be afraid of her. Although some Trump strategists are, not taking it for granted and are prepared. Tim, your party is divided. I talk to Democrats who agree with that point of view that she couldn't possibly win, but I talk to people who say she could energize young people. There's ways in which she might be a stronger candidate. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think the vibes right now are that she would unify the party. The best metaphor that I've heard for this is that you are stuck in the rain, you don't have an umbrella. There's a coworker of yours, not your favorite coworker, pulls up and invites you to get in the car, give you a ride to where you need to go. And during that ride, you are just thankful for them. You're reevaluating. Maybe they are a really good person. I love this person. They drop you off, and then maybe you go back to not being the biggest fan. But during that ride, which will be this primary, you are going to love that person. And I do think that is the general tone that I'm hearing from people on the left, Bernie bros, who are, unironically excited about it, if it is a possibility. So not getting over my skis, but I think there's also some re-energization that will come if she is the nominee.
That's a great analogy, Tim. I actually spot on. I think exactly right. They will coalesce around her and say, Biden did the right thing. We got to suck it up now, no matter who it is. So I think that's
that's possible. All right, Dan Turntine, who worked with Hillary Clinton, but also worked with Nancy Pelosi and knows her people. Dan, you and I agree that Nancy Pelosi is not winging this. She's got a thought through. So just talk about why you think that and what you think she might be thinking about how to proceed beyond pressuring Biden out of the race.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, full disclosure, she was a client of mine years ago on the political side, and as a lobbyist working with her at times and against her. I just cannot fathom that she has not thought through or given serious thought to the day after question. I mean, she is just not one to kind of shoot and then wake up the next day. Her staff is some of the most sophisticated, and they tend to work very quietly. I mean, it's one of her hallmarks. Her fingerprints are on it, right? But like she navigates pretty well. So I have to imagine that they have given a lot of thought about Kamala.
So why not float? So why wouldn't they float? That being, I agree with you on that. Everything I've. So wouldn't you, if you're Nancy Pelosi's staff, if you want this outcome, like, I mean, to Tim's point, the nuttiness of like Carville and these guys, like, we'll have Taylor Swift moderate debates is nuts. Why wouldn't you, if you're Nancy Pelosi's staff, give people a plausible answer and say, guys, here's how we could do it?
But here's privately, I think go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing, Sean, like, 10 days ago when Jim Clyburn kind of said, I endorse a mini primary, I think there are some smoke signals that they, you've got to deal with the CBC, right? I mean, they are the kind of 800-pound gorilla behind Kamala. Like, if they all stand up behind her, that is
except I think some of them secretly don't think she'd be a strong candidate.
And that's the thing. And I also know Nancy's relationship with Kamala is complicated, right? They both come from the Bay Area. They have a lot of mutual friends. Kamala's, history as a campaign manager and a decision maker is checkered. She knows that well. So, I don't, it would be getting a little ahead, but I would imagine you will start seeing more signals here pretty soon about what a process looks like.
So look, the voters are the delegates, right? Assuming they make this change before the roll call, the voters are the delegates. The delegates are Biden-Harris delegates. You're not going to have a democratic process. You're not going to have primaries and caucuses. You're not going to have an internet primary. So if you want the strongest ticket, and again, most people say Shapiro, Whitmer, right? If you want that to be the ticket, then if the Obamas and Biden and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer said they want that to be the ticket, will people say that's undemocratic, or will they say, well, but Sean, you're just going to throw it open to the delegates and the super delegates?
No. But I'm saying that, like, look, you're asking, will they say? I don't see how black men and women, especially black women in the Democratic Party of today, say, okay, you guys told us we had to suck it up. Like, we're just going to walk. It's not.
But that's why. Well, there's two ways to do it. One is to get Harris to stand aside, and the other is to get endorsements from prominent black figures for that ticket.
Well, I mean, I think they may preordain the ticket, but it won't appear that way, right? Like, they'll try to lead the delegates to the water, and then, it was their idea, is one way that you would do that. And I think if Obama and Jim Clyburn and that team walk...
Again, I get back to the time. You've still got to go by August. I mean, first of all, the virtual thing goes out. You're giving up Ohio. There's no question about that. But which is fine. But I'm just saying that, like, do you think that there's enough time to pull this off?
I just like the more we go down the rabbit hole of like what this process looks like, now I'm back to like Joe Biden's at the top of the ticket. Like, you know what I mean? Like, as we open this can of worms, it's so many steps.
Pelosi won't let it. Pelosi won't be mine. To me, there's one solution to take into account Sean's legit concerns, which is they force them both off. He resigns. She becomes president, or not. They both just say they have to do their jobs, and they pick either Gavin or they pick Shapiro and Whitmer. And they just say, this is who we're endorsing. And Nancy calls all the delegates and says, and gets a whip operation and says, this is a ticket. They're planning the convention. We're helping them. To me, anything else is insane. All right, let's go to Gabriel. Gabriel, unmute, please.
Okay. Hey, guys, it seems to me that Kamala Harris represents what is burdened by what could be. She's a loser.
Are you a Biden voter or a Trump voter currently?
You know me well enough by now. I'm a Trump voter, and I'm hoping that it's Kamala. That
No.
would be great. That would be fun. What I wonder about from each of you is who do you think their strongest team could be? And if it involves a guy named Shapiro, are you saying a Jewish man can be president of America today? Those are my two questions. What's their strongest bet? It ain't Kamala. And can a Jew be president of America?
Tim, you pick the ticket that's strongest. Who would you pick?
I mean, I think the question of like, can anybody be president of America? Like, we're always not there until we're there, and I think yes, it's entirely possible. But this is like the difficulty of it is like picking two names. Like, who is the ticket? I just think a reality is if Biden were to step aside, Harris.
Tim, don't wimp out. Right, that's not the
Harris,
question. The question is you pick the ticket. You pick the ticket.
Yeah,
Not who would it be. You pick the ticket.
For strength, I would say I would still keep Harris because I think if you don't have Harris, I think it would be a disaster. And let's go Harris Shapiro.
Okay. As you know, whenever somebody says Harris Shapiro, I make my joke. The best way to beat Donald Trump is with a black and a Jew. Sean, who's the strongest ticket?
I think just look, bottom line is you got to still come down to those three states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. So either a combination, I think Tim's kind of right, just logistically within the Democratic Party, how do you keep them together? You keep Kamala on the ticket and then you find something additive, either Shapiro or Whitmer. I think something like that. I think I just have a hard time. I think potentially Whitmer, Shapiro, or vice versa would be maybe the strongest, but I think, and again, I'm the Republican here, but I would say that would create so many internal problems that would be a problem. So I would go with Tim's suggestion. So you either go Kamala Whitmer or Kamala Shapiro. All
right, I'm going to piss everybody off before I call on Mayhill and say the correct answer is all right, Gabriel, go ahead. Then I'll give you the correct answer. Go ahead.
I was going to say something after your correct answer. But if you want, I'll just say I'm speaking to you from Jerusalem when I say this. I, for one, believe that just because a man wears a tallis and a yarmulke in America today is no reason that he can't become president. So long as that man is not a Jew.
Right. Very funny. The correct answer is Jamie Dimon and Kathleen Sebelius. Thank you, Gabriel. All right, Mayhill Fowler, unmute, please.
Okay, gonna try not to use bad language, men. Let's think for a moment that the Republicans have now had their high watermark with this magnificent convention, because this is a roller coaster year for electing. And let's say that Biden steps down. It has to be Kamala Harris, I think. And maybe she runs with Shapiro. I think that's risky because the way Americans are conflicted now about the Israeli-Gaza conflict, maybe Whitmer, but I think it has to be Kamala Harris. And as I said on your two-way about a month ago, Mark, I think she's the next president of the United States. I really do. And she can get there.
Mayhill, let me ask you this. We have the two Republicans we heard from here who think it's laughable that she could win. Do you think they're naive? Does it daunt you at all that Republicans are not afraid to run against her? You think they don't understand her potential?
They don't know her.
They don't know her.
I think they do. Okay. We Americans do not know her.
I agree with that.
To be specific, I interviewed her in Iowa at the end of 2007. She was, I was a nobody reporter, and the Obama campaign gave her to me as a throwaway because they didn't really care about her. So I got to interview her. And as I've said before, she's remarkably disciplined. She has that characteristic that Obama has, and she's hugely intelligent. She was a prosecutor.
All right,
she's totally
who would you make her run? Who would you make her?
Like
who would you make her?
Vance,
who would you make her running mate?
I think
Shapiro.
It's a roll of the dice, but I think if she would take it, I think Whitmer.
Okay, thank you, Mayhill.
Look, I will say this. No, I will agree with Mayhill that no one does really. I mean, we're on a two-way. We know her. We all are in the game. We know her. I think for the vast amount of Americans, they don't. And a couple $100 million of Hollywood money changes the game real quick.
Yeah.
That being said, I will say one other thing. I'm not sure that not having this debate between JD Vance and Kamala Harris was a good idea. If I were the Trump campaign, knowing how good JD Vance is, I would have said, take her on, get her going, get some on her sooner rather than later. I think that was.
I think they're being pressured because they want to do it on Fox and not CBS. I think that's probably the issue.
Already caved to CNN. Might as well cave to CBS.
No, they don't want to. All right, William Cole, go ahead, please.
I think the ticket is Whitmer, Cory Booker. That solves the Kamala problem of people being unhappy because she was dumped. He's been a presidential candidate before. She's very attractive. She's also a victim in the same way Pence was. People tried to kill her as well as Pence. But don't underestimate Kamala. I walked the halls of the Alameda County Courthouse for 20 years. She's very good prosecutor. She knows how to make a case. She knows how to talk to a jury, and she could prosecute Trump very well, but I don't think she could win. I think a Whitmer, Cory Booker ticket would solve all the political problems.
Just
Okay,
on the
thank
Harris
you.
point there, really
Yeah,
quickly,
go ahead.
what I agree with what you said is put her on the debate stage with Donald Trump, have her prosecute the case against him, and I think he would rally a lot of people.
That's why I want Vance to do it first.
Yeah. All right. Closing remarks. Thank you, Mr. Cole. Closing remarks. First, Tim, just give us your latest sense. If Biden and what's the timetable? Does he come out again definitively and say, I don't care what Nancy Pelosi thinks, I'm in, or could he get out?
I mean, I think he's in until he's out. I know that's not a super intellectualized answer, but I think
that's what his friends say. His friends say he's in until he's out. Yeah.
I think look, here's what I'll tell you. Whatever the CDC says right now is the COVID, that's his timeline. He's got 4 days left to isolate and to make this decision, and then he doesn't have an excuse anymore. Last thing I will say, prediction tonight, RFK shows up on the stage.
Tonight.
I
don't rule it out. He's gone very quiet. Some of his supporters have suggested to me that that's where this is headed. And I think he had dinner with Tucker the other night. I mixed reporting on that, but yeah, RFK walking in would be pretty good. We'll cut this clip for sure and spread that around. Sean, has anyone else predicted that, or is that
that's me? I'm just saying there's something going on here, and I'm telling you, I think it's that the call to him the other day, him going dark, the meetings having, something's up, and I would say that he knows he can't win, and Trump is a deal maker, and he said, you want to be head of CDC or whatever, and we'll deal with the consequences later.
And Tucker, and if I'm right that he and Tucker had dinner, and Tucker's speaking tonight, which we forgot to put in the day book, but I'm looking forward to Tucker's speech. I think it will be incredible. And I use the word incredible as an ambiguous word. Thank you all for joining us, whether on YouTube or right here. We'll see you again tomorrow, post Trump speech, same bad time, same bad channel on the morning meeting. Thank you, guys.